if you saw my email yesterday, I shared out that this past month in September, jobs gains have dipped for the first time since 2020. So up since 2020, jobs have kind of been going like this, like a hockey stick of growth. And now with inflation, with like mortgage rates, interest spiking, like that, everything kind of happening in the world, in society, job markets are for the first time slowing in a substantial amount of time. And I shared this with someone recently. I said, the two worst times to get a job, the number two worst time is July and August because people are on vacation, they're traveling, they're busy. To Taylor's point, they're having weddings and vacations and all over the place. The second worst time, actually the worst time, sorry, the second worst is summer. The first worst time is between Thanksgiving and Christmas, or actually more so New Year's, because that 5 weeks is basically just shot. It's the end of the year. People are doing their final budget stuff. It's the holidays. Kids are out of school. So I kind of put it out there to my community, which includes everyone in this room. Like if you were a tire kicker, right? And now is the time to really hit the gas if you were trying to get something soon-ish. However, no reason to hit the panic button because January is the best time of the year to look for a job because that's when new budgets are approved and that's when new positions are built. So I just say that as like a kind of a way the market moves is that September, October are pretty good, like the first half of November, mid-November to New Year, basically just call it a wash. But then January to March is like go time for a lot of companies. So today's topic is an important one, is resumes, and more specifically power statements, and more specifically to go a third step, how do I communicate what I've done in ministry in a way that kind of makes sense to hiring managers. So I don't know why that closed captioning is happening, but it is what it is. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So resumes, really three big things I want to hit on, and the very last one I want to kind of double click on is that resumes are so valuable and they're so important, but to think that only the resume will get you the job is a losing bet. All right, it's a losing bet. You can have the nicest resume in the world. That doesn't mean that you're going to send it off to a job and they're going to call you back tomorrow. Maybe they will. If they do, that's great. But that's not always the case. And I say that because a lot of times folks pay for me to do a resume for them, and then they apply for the job, they don't hear anything, and they somehow get mad at me. Like I ripped them off or something. I'm like, well, I never promised you you're gonna get a call back. I promised you that would make sense and that it'd be an option there, but it's not the end all be all for job searching. So just to share with you something from my own experience right now is I'm looking for a new position, and I saw a role that I really thought was compelling. And my first step was not my resume. My first step was finding somebody who works there. Talking to them about the position. And it was a friend of mine from a former employer. And she and I connected on LinkedIn and we started texting. And, after a few minutes of talking, I said, hey, by the way, I saw this job. Would you be willing to apply me or refer me rather? Because a lot of companies will give employees money for referrals. And she sent me the link right away and I applied using my resume. And then she actually went one step beyond and figured out who the hiring manager was. And it's going to connect me to the hiring manager. So like my odds of getting an interview, just skyrocketed because of those two steps. Whereas if I just submitted the resume and moved on with my day, I mean, maybe I get a call back and hopefully I would. But having that in with someone within the organization is huge. So I know my graphics are awesome. You can hold your applause, I promise. But what is a power statement? So anyone remember from the PDF that I wrote, or maybe you've Googled this before? What is a power statement in a resume? Anyone recall what that means? And if not, it's okay. I see you moving your lips, Taylor. I don't know if you're up.
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry there. I would say I'm trying to formulate just a statement transferring like what you've done into results and actions,
Right.
and why that's important almost, and rather than just saying it was on the job description. So
yeah. I mean, the easiest way to describe it is, I preached a sermon on Sunday. Well, okay, great. That's fine. But like actually articulating that in a way that shows what you've accomplished. And if you remember our meetup with Stephen Partain 2 weeks back, he really emphasized this, and it's so valuable with measurable metrics or results. We as job seekers are looking to show, like, I went to this place and I did something, and then this was the result, or to use a Christian word, the fruit of it, right? Because here's the thing is that a company is not hiring you, and they're not hiring me because we're nice people, even though I'm sure we all are. They're hiring you because we're a person that's oriented towards results. But the biggest pain point for us as pastors is we're not necessarily evaluated for our results, right? If you ever read Tim Keller's book, Centered Church, he tends to say, as he does often, there's 2 errors, and here's the third way. He says the 2 errors are, a lot of us only gauge fruit of a ministry. So if a person doesn't have a large church or a large platform or a large movement, they don't have a lot of fruit. And that's an error, to only gauge someone's fruit. So the other error is only gauging their faithfulness, right? Well, they were committed and they did it through the highs and the lows. Therefore, they were faithful. And he said, the actual, evidence that we should go for is, the effectiveness. Like, how long was it, like, long term? How long were you able to be both fruitful and faithful in that environment you were in? So the power statement is just that. And here's like a really, really simple way to codify that. 5 steps: the action verb, the quantity, the frequency, the task or project, and the result. So if you are imagining your resume in your mind, you have, kids pastor, First Assembly of God Church, Fishers, Indiana. Like, that's your job title and where you worked. I worked there from, March 2011 to current employer. And below that, you want to have bullet points of what you did there. You don't want to say, I, designed the kids curriculum, and I did background checks for volunteers, and I, led a small team of staff. You want to articulate that in a way that shows this, quite simple framework on how you did that and what were your measurable results. So actually, the trickiest one is the action verb examples. That's the trickiest one. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to share with you all a link that I'm going to put in the chat, and now kind of give you a beginning point of study to start looking at action verbs. So as you go ahead and pull that up, the first thing that you're going to notice in this text is that you want to try to avoid using overutilized action verbs. So for example, participated, managed, assisted, took part in. These are really passive, where they don't come across as actionable. They come across as like, okay, you took part in, this. Okay, that's great, but what there's better words than that you can utilize. So do a quick scroll down on there and share with me like an action verb that you see there on the bullet point. I think there's 400 on this page that you're like, oh, that's something that I've done before. Like, I have, operated in this space. Like, for me, I would say something like, I've guided, I've cultivated, I've directed. Yeah, I've done all those things as someone in ministry. What are the words on there? You're like, I could definitely use that in my resume.
Enabled.
And how do you enable people in ministry?
Yeah. Enable them to thrive as they serve as a volunteer in my ministry.
100%. You're right. And it's in that word enable, things like coaching, empowering, developing, training, all of that is within that one word, enable. I love that one. Yep. There's whole entire departments of organizations that are the enablement department. Anyone else?
Yeah, a lot of them. Authored is one, right? I mean, content creation, sermons, Bible studies, all those things that I've written, created, those are things that didn't exist and then they came into existence. So that idea of that creating, that writing, one.
Yeah, definitely. So if you find a job that's in content creation, curriculum development, writing manuals, writing trainings, I authored materials before. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Taylor or Corey, you see anything on there?
Advocated stuck out to me.
Mm,
Just like advocating for our church works in teams. So like team leaders advocating for changes they'd like to see and advocating for, you know, any just things they'd like to change or things they'd like to do differently, advocating for them to like a leadership team.
I love that. I love that. That's so important. Advocating for your team, advocating for the stakeholders, advocating for the organization, certainly a valuable skill in the workforce. Yep. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to scroll.
No problem. Take your time. No rush.
Yeah, we just pulled up my resume too. Just like, what did I use? So I use Guided a lot. Guided sticks out to me just because of, especially with dealing with volunteers, you do have to guide them a lot, and in kids ministry, you have to guide trainings. You have to, and so like instructed, inspired. A lot of my roles that I stepped in were non-existent kids ministry, so coming in and re-engineering and inspiring fresh vision and teams and structures like that. So yeah, those are things that stuck out to me. So
Totally. And I love this exercise because like all of us went around this room and we all shared, and thank you all for sharing. But yeah, we have done this stuff. These are the skills that companies want. And yeah, I've done all of this. I've pioneered new works. I've transformed. I united. I've enabled, to Stephen's point. I've counseled. I've accelerated. Yeah, I mean that all makes sense to me. But do you see how like we're used to like in ministry world to like speak more and like I was part of a team that did this. It's like, well, yeah, you were, but you also give yourself some more credit. You've also did a big part of that. So a resume is a good chance to put your best foot forward. So that's the first one, is the action words. And that's really the hardest part of all of this. Well, probably the second hardest part. The hardest part is probably the results. The second part is the quantity. And then AKA how many, right? How many people, how many stakeholders, how many volunteers, how many teams, how many donors, how many folks were we talking about here? How many, initiatives did you do in a given, calendar year or a given quarter? Just people want to see a number on there. And this is probably the most important thing I'll say this whole day. If you have a bullet point on your resume that does not have a number on it, figure out a place to put a number on it, okay? Because if not, it's just not quantifiable, right? If I'm applying for a social media manager job, and I say, oh yeah, I manage my social media for my church, and I wrote, All Saints Church, lead pastor, manage social media. It's like, well, what does that mean, right? But if I say like, I coordinated and scheduled 16 posts monthly that received, 2,000 impressions, resulting in, increased engagement to our digital community, that makes a lot more sense than I manage the social media. So that's quantity. How many, the number. The next one's frequency. Also, this is not rocket science, guys. We can all figure this out. We're all smart people in here. Did this happen daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly? How often were these engagements happening? So you kind of have the three things so far. Keep it simple. You have the action verb, you have the quantity, you have the frequency. We're going to workshop all this together here in a minute. Obviously, the task of the project, like what did you do? And can be a little bit tricky because you want to obviously communicate it in a way that makes sense to the person reading your resume. And I'll kind of share with you here in a minute how we do that. But the easiest way to do that, guys, is you're going to look at the job description and you're going to identify what is the language they're saying in the job description, and how do I I can't even talk today, match my task or project to that job description. So what I'm doing is utilizing keywords to make sure that it aligns. And then finally, what is the result? And I think this is the hardest thing, is what is the result? And you want to ideally have a number attached to this, okay? So if you're going to talk about fundraising for maybe a ministry that you started and resulting in, $40,000 of additional funding a year, right? Resulting in 10% growth, over the course of 12 months, resulting in, 50% engagement with volunteer mobilization. something that has a result. So you just kind of piece it all together and you have what's called the power statement. And if you're feeling like, okay, I'm kind of confused, this is a lot, I'm going to share with us 3 case studies I think will help us think through this in a way that makes sense. So once again, the action, verb, the quantity, the frequency, the task, project, and result. And the thing of it is, guys, is once you get in the swing of doing this, it becomes a lot easier. Like I can pull up a job that looks interesting. I can go to my resume. I can spend 20 minutes tweaking and I'm like ready to go. I mean, the first iteration of it is time consuming. It takes hours, but then once you get the hang of it, it really is a seamless process to execute. So let's practice. All right. You are a kids pastor and lead a kids ministry team of 20 volunteers and 35 children in a church of 250 with a 400K budget, and you're now applying for a learning and development facilitator job. So here you are, kids pastor, spent some time doing this, pretty large church, pretty large budget, pretty large team, and you come across, oh, and I can finally get rid of this. There we go. So then you come across this job. All right, this might be kind of hard to see, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a second and share with you guys the link to this job that I found today. And then we can go ahead and do like a workshop together on how you would, as the kids pastor, rework your resume using this template to get this job. So I'm going to share the screen again just for the people that are watching the recording later. And I'll go ahead and call out some of these big ones. So this is, developing the learning programs and making sure the participants are engaged, sending out motivational communications, partnering with the head of learning and development, which, by the way, life hack, partner with the head of L&D. That means that will be your boss. So therefore go on LinkedIn and figure out who that is for the company, because now you can connect with them directly. So there you go. That was worth the price of admission alone. And this is just, it's a learning development job. You're providing adult training for folks within the company, virtual and in-person engagement. Yeah, let's say a pretty good gig. I would like a job like this. So, all right. And there's also the second point there, which is kind of interesting, is the learning calendar for the whole entire staff. And of course, as a kids worker, that's easy peasy. You do learning calendars all the time. It's not a big deal. So I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with this process called Jamboards, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up a Jamboard and we're going to have some fun with it. And I'm going to need all of you guys to help me out because I don't want to be the one that keeps talking because nobody wants to hear me yap all day. But click on that link for the Jamboard. And then let me know if it pulls up for you. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah, I can.
Cool. If you've never done a Jamboard before, the way it works, over on the left, you see the little sticky note. You click on that and you can type in whatever you want. So I want you, let's talk about now, we're the kids pastor. We're trying to go to the learning and development job. We want to rework our resume to kind of make it so that the head of L&D, who we did email our resume to, we bypassed the system, looks at it and says, wow, I got to bring this person in for an interview because they really got it going on. So what you can do is pull up the sticky note and type in, what, I'm gonna cheat and be lazy, so forgive me. I would put coordinate because coordinate is, already there as the very first word in there. So someone else pull the sticky note, and what other action verb could you utilize if you were trying to, take this skill, coordinate learning and development programs led by Catalyst, name of the company, staff, and external vendors, including scheduling facilitators, identifying and enrolling participants, processing contracts, distributing materials, and ensuring smooth delivery of programs. So I said coordinate. You go ahead and add a sticky, put underneath mine. What other action words could you use? And I'll go ahead and start adding some too as well. And please come off mute, and I'd love to hear your train of thought of what you're thinking. So coordinate is okay. It's, to me, more of a passive word. I'm going to say, there you go, inspired. I love that. Who put inspired?
I did.
And what do you think inspired does to the person reading your resume?
Well, as a kids pastor, you do have to inspire training and spearhead training. And so, you know, for someone that would be like that the L&D, like I feel like Inspired would pique them because it's not just, oh, I have to do this training. I'm thinking of creative ways to make it enjoyable
Yeah.
and worth their time.
Yep. Awesome. Sorry, I'm being type A here and keeping everything organized.
Oh no, you're good.
Who said cultivated?
I put cultivated. I thought I heard the word like culture, like creating a culture, and so you got to cultivate that. And
Excellent. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're cultivating something that's perfect. And facilitated, who was that?
I put that one.
Awesome. What made you think of facilitated?
You know, teaching, developing. I think you're facilitating discussions and you know, workshops. So that's kind of where my mind went with that one.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Thank you. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to quantities. Does anyone, this will be a freebie for us. I appreciate you all playing along. And how many kids did I say you have in your kids ministry? Did I say 25 kids? Is that what I said? Okay. You have 25 kids. You also have, how many volunteers did I say? 20 volunteers?
Yeah.
That sounds good. You got 20 volunteers, 25 kids, and a church of 200. Is that right? What I said? 200 people in the church. All right. So we have lots of numbers of people we work with. All right. So now we're going to kind of follow the yellow brick road and we're going to say, this is a learning development program and we coordinated, inspired, cultivated, and facilitated. Oh, all right, Craig, take care, man. Something 25 kids, 20 volunteers, 20 people in the church. And let's skip frequency for now because we don't know what we're talking about. Let's move over to task or project. So once again, grab your sticky note and I'm gonna steal the most obvious one because you know I get to do that as the facilitator today. And I'm gonna say this: onboarding new staff. That was something I coordinated, inspired, cultivated, facilitated. What other learning development actions does a kids pastor of 25 kids, 20 volunteers, 200-person church do that links up to this program, to this need? So I have onboarding new staff. What else do they do? Put yourself in the shoes of a kids pastor. They do everything. Restructuring policies and procedures. Excellent. Who put that one?
I did.
Taylor, you're like a pro at this because this was your job, or this is your job. So what does restructuring policies and procedures look like for a kids pastor?
Going through the old one and updating, especially now with the accessibility of programs of, you know, sex offenders. What does abuse look like? I'm trying to think, you know, creating healthy boundaries and programs. And so, yeah, the past 3 roles I've had to come in and rewrite policies and procedures off the bat. Not because they were bad, but they were just outdated and didn't make sense. Or they added 3 campuses and the policies and procedures still highlighted the main campus. So as someone of a second campus, you're like, okay, none of this makes sense to me because this is main campus. So, yeah. So.
Yep. No, I love that. Thanks for sharing. It definitely is valuable for sure. And I don't
know what to do for this one, but I feel like a children's pastor is really good at teamwork, like working under someone and like taking direction and also being able to coach and teach other people.
Yep. How about we put coaching and developing staff? I love that. Yep, for sure. I mean, typically most churches that I've been a part of, the kids pastor has the largest volunteer base that they're managing. I mean, it's a pretty big job. You know, you got 25 volunteers that you're reporting to you. That's a lot of work. I was a kids pastor. I know it was more work than being a senior pastor in a lot of ways, to be honest. So, all right, cool. So we got a good list here. Onboarding new staff, restructuring policies and procedures. Let's take a look at the top again. Coordinating learning and development programs led by Catalyst staff. And I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of the word Catalyst because I might throw some of us off. That's just the name of the company. And external vendors, including scheduling facilitators, identifying and enrolling participants, processing contracts, distributing materials, ensuring smooth delivery of programs. So we said onboarding new staff, restructuring policies and procedures, coaching and developing staff. There's a big one in there that I see. Creating schedules. My God, that was my life. I did all this without planning.
Every day. Every day.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sick. Sorry, I forgot I'm going on vacation. Sorry, I called into work. Sorry. Oh man. Okay. Yep. God bless you. Why are you on this team? The third time you called out this quarter. Awesome. So let's just go ahead and which one of these four do you think is the most relevant to this bullet point? Because we're going to keep building this out as we go. Or is there another one we should add?
I would say coaching and developing staff.
Okay.
Because you're looking at they're wanting you to train staff and external vendors, including scheduling facilitators, identifying. So like the first thing typically in a job description is your biggest role.
Yeah.
And so the coaching and developing staff. I've changed, this is me, Eric. I've changed volunteers to members and staff because then it makes sense, because a volunteer in the business world is like, you volunteered for that? Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I would say coaching and developing staff would immediately be the top one I would put. And then the next one would be, scheduling, creating schedules for 200 people in the church, and coordinated, things like that. So
Definitely. So now we're starting to get somewhere, which is good. And I want to hear, see. Let's hear from Craig on this one. Craig, just for fun, how often do you as a kids pastor develop your 20 volunteers? What frequency? Do you guys meet once a month, once a quarter, every week? How often do you guys think you meet? Oh, I'm sorry, Corey.
Oh,
I forgot. I didn't know if Craig or Corey left. I'm trying to do two things at once. I apologize, Corey. Craig left. Corey's here.
I think I know ours, they meet at least monthly with a larger group of volunteers, weekly with some of the more dedicated team members, I'll say, or staff.
All right. We're just going to say weekly because it sounds better.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Okay. So now I'm meeting weekly with 20 volunteers. And I think what Taylor said is spot on. They're going to change the word volunteers. And I'll go ahead and over here to the tail end. What is the result of me doing this? Put a sticky note over there. The result of me, coaching, developing these 20 volunteers weekly. What's the result of that? And if ideally put a number, and I'm going to go ahead and sneak in and try to stick one in there too. So the easiest way to start off resulting in here we go. I'm popping in on mine. I put orange because it's Halloween and pumpkins are orange, resulting in 95% retention. That's what I would put. I would say of the 20 volunteers that I have, 19 of them stay. Actually,
that's a win. I'm going to tell you right now, that's like, I made my year if I have that.
like I said, this is why it's fun to make stuff up, because we can talk about the perfect world, right? Resulting in 95% annual retention, 40% engagement and retention volunteers. Excellent. I love that. Pull that one over here. Awesome. All right, we'll go with that second one. It's a little more realistic. All right, now let's look at our first 4 words or action verbs. Of those, which one is makes the most sense for the coaching, developing 20 volunteers weekly, resulting in 40% engagement and retention? Which one of those 4 words?
Can't tell. I like inspired, but I don't know if it's like maybe a little too much.
I think, I think it's fine.
Feels like if you're going, you're, what do we go with? We want the 40%, or do we go with the 95%?
No, I'll go with the 40 because it's more realistic. Inspire 20 plus team members weekly in coaching and staff development, resulting in 40% engagement and retention. Why is that so big? I have no idea.
It's
All right.
massive.
It's massive. I mean, how do I get this smaller?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. I apologize, guys. I'll put it in the chat too. But once again, inspired. Oh, someone help me out. Thank you. Someone knows Jamboard better than I do. Inspired 20 team members weekly in coaching and staff development, resulting in 40% engagement and retention. What do you think, Steven? You look pretty impressed.
I mean, that was magic, you know, I'm just like kind of blown away. That process, like, whoa, all right. I like it.
Yeah. And it is magic. I mean, like
Yeah.
you said, it's just like this makes sense. Like if I'm a hiring manager, I've never been in a church before. It's like, oh, okay, I see what this person has done. What else do you guys think of this process?
For me, it definitely built confidence, like self-confidence, like, oh, okay, I do actually do a lot more than what I think I did. And it's everyday hard skills that other companies need. So
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing that's like always surprises people when I share this. I had a guy say to me, I feel like this is lying. I said, well, why? Because it just sounds too good. I was like, but this is what you did, right? He's like, well, yeah. It's like, but it sounds like too good. I'm like, well, give yourself some credit, man. Like you did a lot. You're doing a lot. So yeah, I think this is a pretty special process. All right, we got time for one more. We won't do all three, but I want you all to take the steering wheel on this round. So second bullet point on our L&D job was develop and maintain a central learning and development calendar share with all staff. So I'm going to give you all a minute or two, and let's kick it off with the action verb. So go scroll on over to that link and pop a word into that section under the sticky notes. Spearheaded, nice, love it. I threw in the word design. Up we have monthly there, perfect. That would go under frequency.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, feel free to do any of these that you want, and we're gonna make this the best power statement, the most powerful power statement we ever saw in the whole I Help Pastors Get Jobs community. Monthly. I'm going to go very corporate here. I'm going to put 3 matrix schedules. And what that means is that I have kids 2 and under, I have kids 3 to 6, and I have kids 9 to 10. And I'm dating 3 different schedules because there's 3 different classes, 3 different teams of volunteers. So there's 3 different schedules happening monthly. Right. So how would you phrase a task or project? In a way that makes sense to the person reading this.
I feel like it's cheating, but you could just put organizational calendar.
Yeah.
I don't know if like, I know we're supposed to be doing this on our own, quote unquote, but I'm just even trying to think it in my own, like, well, I use Planning Center, so, but I mean, it's an organizational calendar at its best.
No, yeah, I would punch an organizational calendar, and what Planning Center is a CRM. It's a relationship management tool. So you throw that in there as well. So I'm going to put CRM.
Oh, I was going to add it If you
Oh.
want to add it, go ahead.
No,
Oh,
no,
no,
no.
you got it.
This is good. And then we can just, people, I'm glad they came off mute, Taylor. Feel free, we can keep talking too. Organizational calendars, CRM. And I'm actually gonna tack in the word and quarterly and annually, and annual. And then the brave souls, I want to tack on the resulting in. Then we're gonna have this this power statement for the ages. What is you developing the calendar for the kids ministry? What does that result in? What value does that bring to the overall organization? I mean, I already have my answer, but I do this every day. So I want to hear from you guys too. Here we go. I'm gonna throw these two words out there. Seamless execution. What does a calendar do? Communication,
Yeah.
events. Anything else we want to tack on here before we put it all together?
Consistency.
Mhm. Yep, that's
I was
great.
going above and beyond. I was like consistency and equitable workload
There you go.
across team members, but that's also me also in the same framework of the job I applied for yesterday.
Yeah,
So it's alignment.
alignment, perfect. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, equitable workload. I think that's good. That's really good. All right. So I don't put anybody on the spot, so I'm not gonna call anybody out, but does anybody want to like grab the texting tool and try to type this out for us? So here you are, kids pastor. You've done counters before. Counters are like literally your middle name. You have nightmares about counters. They want you.
Yeah.
Taylor knows all about it. They want you to communicate to them, hey, how are you going to develop and maintain a central learning and development calendar shared with all staff using the words that we just put on the screen? How would you throw it all together?
I could throw all of this together. I feel like that's what because I'm looking, I'm just even thinking through like my job, like, yeah, it is weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, probably quarterly and monthly, to be honest. Oh, uh-oh.
What were you saying? What was the end of your thought? So you're saying that this would totally be what you're doing?
Yeah, as a kids pastor, I mean, I lived in planning center because
Yep.
you're trying to fix all the problems. And so with a CRM that led to, I would say, seamless execution.
Yep.
Across I've said this like across all organizations or yeah. So
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and piece this together. Spearhead three matrix scheduled monthly, quarterly, and annually with 20 plus. Actually, our church is 200, right? 200
oh yeah.
person organization utilizing CRM and organizational tools, resulting in seamless execution of events. And actually, we're gonna put a little number there, 12 annually, and staff alignment. So
Boom.
what I do at my previous job. Oh, what happened to the other part? That was the first half.
Oh, my bad. My
It's
fault.
all right. You're good.
Oh,
There we
it
go.
is.
Oh man, magic.
My
All right.
bad.
You're good. We tag teamed it. Spearhead three matrix schedules monthly, quarterly, and annually with a 200 person organization utilizing CRM and organizational tools, resulting in seamless execution of events, 12 annually, and staff alignment. See, So pretty cool, huh? What do you think, Corey? Up, you're on mute, brother.
I said, I like it. You are making it look easy.
Well, here's the thing. This is why people pay me a lot of money to do it for them, because people realize, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. But once you kind of get in the habit of doing it, like, okay, this kind of makes sense. But it does certainly take a habit. And the last one is this. We won't do all of this today, but ensure maximum participation in learning and development programs through timely and motivational communications and reminders to attendees and their managers regarding trainings and assignments. Basically, this is just the same thing as a kids pastor would do. Hey, ensuring the volunteers are in place, reminding them of why they're part of this ministry. I love how they had some motivational, communications. That's emails, that's text, that's whatever it is, newsletters. This is open to anybody. If you want to go and start playing with it, you can. But I hope this exercise has kind of shown you guys, like, hey, you know what? Like, what I've done in ministry is really applicable to the workforce. And all I need to do is find ways to re-message my skills in a way that makes sense. Because we could have, let's go back to this one. We could, unable to load file, okay. We could have gone, to this first one, coordinated learning and development programs led by staff, because, okay. I was the kids pastor at First Baptist Church in Tacoma, Washington. My top bullet point, led 20 staff. Right. Well, okay. Like, what does that mean? How'd you do that? What did it actually look like, tangibly? Right.
Yeah.
You could have gone here. Bullet point 2, I manage the calendar. Woohoo! You know what I mean? Like, who cares? This point here. I sent out all mass communications. Tell me more. Like, I want to look at your resume and see, holy smokes, this person has really done a lot, and it's really impressive. And I have to, have a chat with this person as soon as possible. So, one last thing I'll leave us with, and then we can open the floor to questions, discussion, what have you, is I do have a free PDF called Ministry to Marketplace PDF. If you wanted that file, just let me know. I don't think I can upload it here on Slack, but here on Zoom, but I'll send it on Mighty Networks. And that's a really easy, like, plug and play. Here's how you build a resume. And it's a really good place to start. Because the thing of it is, ministry resumes tend to just not show up well within the applicant tracking system, because there's not those keywords embedded into it that we just spent the last 53 minutes really dialing in. So taking time on the step is so critical. But as I said at the top of the call, I'll kind of go through at the end of the call. Your resume is an important part of your job search, but it's one piece of your job search. It's also your networking, your LinkedIn, your connections. I mean, even what Taylor has done is so smart, is calling his friends. Hey, can I have an hour of your time? I just want to hear more about what you're doing. That is, the way that you kind of break in to these jobs. I mean, the pray and spray way of applying to 100 jobs a day. I mean, okay, that's fine. You can do that. People get jobs that way, but it's not the most effective way to get a job. So, all right, we got a few minutes left. Does anybody have questions, anything on your mind? It could be resumes, could be life, could be job searching. Anyone that got closing thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for another job to apply to. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I think definitely, just to offer encouragement. Like, I was kicking the tire probably for 3 months, and then I was just like, you know what, I feel like, in that I was interviewing at churches, and for me it was kind of more of a fleece, if you would say. And the church terms of like, all right, God, like, if you want me still in ministry, like vocational ministry, like, I'll see it, but if these 2 jobs don't pan out, I'll take it as a sign. And so that was the sign. And so for me, it's daunting, but I like highly recommend what Eric's done. It's great work. And then I gave myself a good 12 hours just to like dive and read. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I took Eric's initial document, I think that's back in May or March. And literally every time he had a link, I just clicked it and read it. And then, okay, let me go back to this. And so, but it's also like the other side of it too, is like, it's created a lot more self-confidence in me So even if I step back in the ministry, I'm able to take this and correlate it back to what's going on. And so another big thing is if you've jumped around jobs like I have, Eric recommended just lumping it all together because it looks way better when you said, oh, I've been doing this for 10 years. And they go, oh, okay. Rather than, yeah, I had 8 jobs in 10 years. And they go, are they going to bounce type deal? So, but yeah, no, this process has literally changed everything. And even if I still step into ministry, it's created a lot of self-confidence of, oh, wow, I actually did a lot, even if you don't see the fruit that we as pastors would say that's there. So
It's awesome, man. That's really, really
Thanks, Taylor.
encouraging. Yeah, thank you, Taylor.
Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's helpful to hear, Taylor. I'm curious, Eric and Taylor and even and Stephen too. Like, I'm not ready to look for a job yet. I'm trying to give my church a little bit of time, but I feel like there's some things I can do even before I start looking. Any thoughts on some homework I should be working on over the next month or two?
I would say your resume, and then the other, they're both pretty important. Your LinkedIn as well. Up until a month ago, I'd never had a LinkedIn because as a pastor, you don't need to. You just email the senior pastor and say, hey, I know you have a job with me. Here's my resume. Would love to connect with you. And so creating LinkedIn was pretty like oh man, like I haven't created a social media profile in like 10 years. So it's basically what it is. But at the same time, like it's still overwhelming to me. Like I haven't posted anything like posts or anything like that. I've just kind of sat back and observed and saw stuff. But yeah, it wasn't until and I'll even be candid, like I've rewritten my resume I think 4 times now, even since I've switched it from a ministry resume to a workplace resume. I'm just constantly and even what I've done is probably half of pray and spray in some ways, but I've also looked up for me, I felt like project coordinator was the best entry that I could do because I managed a ton of teams. I've been on churches that have grown from 400 to 2,000. And so I've had to learn how to develop and manage people. And so from there, I've said, okay, I'm going to find project manager on Indeed. I'm going to look locally. I'm going to click remote. And I would just look through and go, you know what, I'd be interested in that. And I would hit apply. And then from there, we'd keep a track. And then I would try to find connections on LinkedIn or even saying this is something for me like in the church world is not really looked upon the greatest, but like even sending a message of a cover letter of like, hey, I may not have the exact skills that you're looking for, but you also are going to find someone that is willing to learn and wants to learn new things and is going to grow. And I'm going to make sure that you won't regret hiring me as title at company. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. Hope you have a great day. Like little things like that is just like church world. They're like, oh, wow, that's really cocky. And it's like, no, I'm just confident of who I am. And I know that if I get a job, I'm going to prove to you that you made the right hire. And yeah, so that, I think that's helped land me a little bit more of interviews when I've been able to do that. And so, yeah, that's for me, that's been a big thing because I think meekness is great in ministry, but it's also a detriment as well because you don't really get to brag about yourself a lot. So,
No, that's really helpful advice.
Thanks.
It's good.
And also, Corey, this is the book I've been telling a lot of folks about. What color is my parachute? One of the biggest mistakes that I see pastors transitioning make is they shoot way too wide for what they want to do. Like what Taylor just shared was so valuable. He's like, I want to be in project management. So I'm going to look for jobs in that field. And I'm going to niche down, and that's going to be my focus. A lot of pastors that call me frustrated are like, I applied for a recruiter job on Monday and a project management job on Tuesday and learning development on Wednesday and nonprofit on Thursday. I'm not getting any calls back. I'm like, well, you got to pick a lane, man. Like pick, I'm going to focus on this, all my attention on this. And even if it's for 30 days, right? I'm going to figure out what that is. And I think that book is really helpful. If you are like, where you are, Corey, I'm a few months away from actually applying. what's my first step? Yeah, resume, LinkedIn, but this as well is a really tremendous resource.
Cool. Thanks.
And one of the things that I've been doing, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, Corey, where I'm not necessarily looking for something right now, but just kind of beginning that search, is just having conversations with people about that. I mean, I just was talking to my neighbor and found out that for 30 years he's been in like learning and development. Never knew that. Like, that's literally been his career, and that's been something that I've been like pursuing. So just talking about that with people was, oh, here's like a resource of somebody that can point me in the direction of some things and keep learning. So I think along with the, the LinkedIn and the resume, just, finding that networking, in different places and having that conversation. It's kind of been fun just to learn some of those new things. And I feel like I'm not, focused in on one thing quite yet, but I'm in that process. And so that's like been helpful to think I'm like making some progress,
I love that.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's great advice. It's so funny to me that like we as pastors, like people come to our churches every Sunday and they see us at work. But for me, like I very rarely ever ask people in my church like what they did, like where they worked, what their jobs were, like until I got into the bivocational world. But like I never had any idea. And it's just kind of interesting, isn't it? How like we just don't really explore that with people and get curious about a place where they spend 40 hours of their week. So yes, Stephen, good on you, brother, for being curious. Now you found a 30-year L&D vet living right next door. It's pretty impressive.
We'll see what happens.
I mean, that goes a long way if you want to get into L&D. And
Oh
so,
my gosh, yeah,
yeah.
it's huge. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop on the recording.